All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Monday, April 17, 2023 regular school board meeting. We'll start with the roll call. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant.
Present.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Here.
Mr. Carpenter.
Present.
Mr. Leeds.
Here.
And Mr. Fulham.
Present.
All right. Moving on, would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Excellent.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.3, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
None.
All right. Moving on to item 1.4, approve the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye.
Mr. Fulham.
Aye.
Mr. Leeds.
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
And Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. Moving on to Section 2, discussion and comments from the board. Section 2.1, legislative. Mr. Leeds.
The legislators were out the last 2 weeks for spring break. Everybody went to Florida except the guys up there, and they went to nursing home. But anyway, they're back this week, and the big thing that we're going to talk about is the budget starting today. And I will tell you, in the county, they have awoken a gorilla in the county over taxes, and that's Don Dixon. And tomorrow, they're going to discuss the taxation up at the State House, and he will be there. He is hot from the standpoint that the people in Butler County are getting hit with a average of 24% increase in taxes. He said that is not legal as far as he's concerned. So we'll see what happens. But when he gets on his soapbox, people listen. So hopefully we'll get something reduced. But anyway, that's all I have.
All right. Moving on to 2.2, Butler Tech. Mr. Guido.
Mr. President, Madam President, members of the board. I wanted to, you guys all got my email about the all boards meeting?
Right?
So my meeting is not until tomorrow, so I don't have your student success letters, and that'll be tomorrow. And so I don't really have much of a report because our board meeting is tomorrow. But I did want to remind you about the all boards meeting. You should get access to be able to look and see what sessions you want to attend, because it is the student showcase are going to be going on as well. I do try and attend as many Monroe ones as I can, but with them being on different campuses, there's no way for us to meet every one of those. We do have our student report card coming out, not report card, but our student district report, which will show you a 5-year history of the relationship with Monroe and Butler Tech, programming, the numbers of students that have attended, as well as for the 22-23. That has not been finalized for next year because obviously the assignments are still pending. They did do the first lottery. I think I told you guys that. Turned away about 1,000 students countywide, which is horrible. So we're continuing to work, obviously, on that as well. I don't really have anything else. Anybody have any questions or anything?
No.
I know we're still looking for Robert and Mr. Graff to bring additional programs. We've talked about a couple of them, so hopefully once we get some space, that'll continue to expand.
To get our minds together this summer to really look at the direction we want to go with our Butler Tech programming. Actually, Mr. Prohaska, Mrs. Long, and I spoke about how we are kind of all over the place with our Butler Tech programming right now. We've got a little of this, little of that. They're kind of our we use Butler Tech to fill holes, which is a need. But we don't have that one program, and I'll use Talawanda's FFA program that they have through Butler Tech. It's like their Gold Star program with Butler Tech, and so it's going to, we're looking at what can we do that is the Monroe signature program to get focused, because we're not big enough to have 6 programs with Butler Tech, and so we talked about we talked about, what can we do to get that focus, so.
That's always been the struggle is that we just have limited numbers, especially in junior and senior programming. But our numbers actually look pretty good. We're at the second highest enrollment this year that we have ever been through our programs. The only other year is the year after we went into fiscal emergency, because we didn't have any course offerings for them. The biggest percentage is at D. Russell Lee and at the Bioscience Center off the red building off of the highway. So, I appreciate the support, and the students do as well, I'm sure. So we'll continue to work on it, and hopefully everybody that wants to learn something new can get involved in it. Any questions? No. Oh, I did want to share, tomorrow is the last hearing for House Bill 12, which is the ODE realignment bill.
Yeah.
The last hearing is tomorrow, so we'll see what comes of that.
I saw that ODE, the state school board is trying to, they came out with something today that said they serve more of a purpose than.
Oh, I didn't
So
see that.
They tried to, they're countering, I believe, so.
Well, they're running out of time.
Yeah, I think so too. Their state superintendent just left, so or she's maybe still serving, but she committed elsewhere, so
She ought to go to Lakota.
be interesting.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Mr.
You.
Gatto.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to 2.3, finance.
And we had a finance meeting a little while ago, and the bottom line is, in the finance presentation that Holly does, if there's any questions that we have, we need to contact Holly and let her explain to you on a one-on-one basis rather than to go through it in depth up here, because there's a lot of behind the scenes that goes on in the forecasting versus the actuality. And so, it's like tonight, we hope the textbooks that we're going to buy, we hope that they come in yet this year so we can pay for them in the school year. So we may not get them to 24 school year. So that screws up the budget there. But anyway, well, just if anybody on the board or even the public has anything, contact Holly direct, and she can explain what's going on. So other than that, it was a good meeting. Hopefully we can get further uncapped this year, which will help us a lot, but we don't know. So
When will we have more of an idea of what the next step is?
June 30th.
June 30th?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we know we're going to be uncapped for the next 2 years. at least.
Okay.
In fact, we're even being advised just to go ahead and plan for,
Yeah. I haven't heard anything that says it's not
Not,
going to
yeah.
happen. The next, at
Yeah.
least in the
Next
next
2
2
years.
It'll continue, so.
Okay.
that's all.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to 2.4, student achievement. Got a little, missed pages, and there we go.
Okay, so for student achievement, I know it's only been a short while since we, had our last board meeting, but there's actually a lot to catch up on. The primary raised over $5,000 for the American Heart Association on their recent challenge that they had, so that was a good job for the primary students. In elementary, there's a fourth grader, Alexa Funk, who won the poster contest for the Sons of America Revolution. Her poster advanced to the state and won first place in Ohio, and where she'll be going to an awards ceremony in May. So that's pretty exciting for her. And then the elementary also celebrated Autism Awareness Month in April, where the students with special needs designed and sold T-shirts to raise money for their classrooms. And then in junior high, I'd like to recognize some of the two of the student of the months. These students clearly demonstrate the 3R characteristics of better together, relentless effort, and stand up and own it. And congratulations to 7th grader Audrey Bodenhop. Audrey is an excellent student choice for the Student of the Month because she is kind, dedicated, and has a desire to constantly better herself. She always chooses to complete the extension activities that I offer, even though her grade does not need the boost. She sets a fantastic example for her peers by being cooperative, using class time wisely, and staying actively engaged in class. Audrey exemplifies Hornet pride and is very deserving of the title of Student of the Month. And that was Mrs. Boggs' recommendation from Social Studies. The 8th grader Student of the Month is Carlos Guerrera. Carlos comes to class every day prepared and ready to participate in all of the class activities and discussions. He is kind to all of his classmates and a fantastic partner to work with. I appreciate his hard, relentless effort and his willingness to stand up and own it every day he is in class. Keep up the hard work. And that's from Mrs. Lamping in Language Arts. So I'd like to say congratulations to Audrey and Carlos. At the high school, the Ohio State assessments started today. I believe it was the junior high and high school today. So good luck to all those students, and just do your best. That's all that we can ask. I'd like to congratulate the symphonic band and the choral choir that both made state and will be performing on April 28th. So that was a huge accomplishment. So great job to Mr. Brinkman and Mr. Longear. Prom is this Friday at Lake Lindsay, and after prom's at the Webb. So I always say this: have fun and make good decisions to those students. And
We're looking for chaperones between hours of midnight and 3.
and they're looking for
Well past
chaperones.
my time.
Not it.
Well past.
Understand. Okay. I'd also like to. This isn't really a student achievement; it's a Monroe achievement. The Monroe School District. I just want to say congratulations for being selected by the Ohio Department of Education as a Purple Star School. This was awarded due to our commitment to serving military-connected students and families. In the future Forward Ohio, the state's strategic priorities for education recognizes the importance of overcoming obstacles in learning. To be successful in school and in traditional between school settings, Ohio military-connected youth requires supports to ensure their unique social, emotional, and academic needs are met. The Purple Start Award Monroe is receiving demonstrates our commitment to serving these students and the families. So I'd like to just say, congratulations. And the Purple Star designation is valid for 3 years. And I'd like to thank Kelly Donaldson, who did all the behind work and all the stuff to make that happen for Monroe Local Schools. It's a great opportunity and a great recognition that we have. That's all.
Thank you. Very good month. Moving on to 2.5, MEA. Seeing no one here, we will move on to in section 3, and seeing that there's no comments from the public, we will move on to 3.2.
See that, so I hope that's me. Okay, so tonight I want to present to you the information that the Science Committee has come up with for instructional materials and curriculum adoption for next school year. So, first of all, I want to recognize on the first slide the committee members, and I just want to say they had a lot to do with organizing. They went through all the materials and presented all of the information to their grade levels. But there were, like for the example, the high school, the whole department worked on it together. But these were the leads for our committee, so they did a great job. I'm going to share with you the things that we looked at and what we've come up with. So this first slide here just tells you what Ohio's science standards and expectations say that students should be able to do at the end of high school. Know, use, and interpret scientific explanations of the natural world, generate and evaluate scientific evidence and explanations, distinguishing science from pseudoscience, understanding the nature and development of scientific knowledge, and then participating productively in scientific practices and discourse. So I show you that because on the next slide, these are some of the things that stood out to us about the curriculums that we are recommending for adoption. I'm not going to read through all of these, but all of these feed into the things that were just on the previous slide. These are just a little bit more specific. For example, I'll just share with you one thing that, like the last bullet. Think about themselves as science learners and develop an identity as someone who knows about, uses, and sometimes contributes to science. So one of the things that's really embedded throughout all the different curriculums that you're going to be able to look at is careers. that's something that we don't really, you don't think about. But even with the young kids, they have some things embedded in so that they can talk about what does a scientist do, what kinds of things could you possibly get into as far as careers go with science. So that's one of the things that we did look at, among a lot of other things. And even this wasn't everything. I didn't put up, for example, the assessments that are in there for the teachers, to help know what the kids are learning and do they need to back up and teach something differently or gather more materials for the kids. But these are some of the highlights that stood out for us. So what I did was, and since I don't have my computer up here, but on each of these for the different curriculums, you can click on, when you guys have a chance, you can click on the buttons and you can see, it'll take you to the sites of the different, to give you all the information about the different curriculums. But I will real quick go through what each of the buttons are so that you know. So links to, or for grades K to 2, they are using Picture Perfect Science. So the last time we did a science adoption, Picture Perfect Science is what they adopted. It's literature-based, so they don't have, per se, a textbook. They have books, read-aloud books, that go with experiments and activities that they can do. This is written actually by a couple of local people, and we have a few teachers who are actually published in one of their Picture Perfect Science books. So it was through a Miami course that our teachers were involved. So Picture Perfect Science has been around for a while, but it is what our teachers wanted to stick with because it's good for them to be able to integrate their science into their literacy. It kind of fits more for the younger grades. And then they also, grades K and 1, use Science A to Z, which is just another resource for them to get some more reading materials. They have some experiments on there for the kids to do, a few science games that the kids can play at centers and that type of thing. So second grade does not use Science A to Z, but they do use the Picture Perfect Science. And there is one more Picture Perfect Science book, but I just put the 3 up there, and the link is on the middle one there if you're wanting to look at that. So, so on to grades 3 to 12. I put all of theirs on one page. I do have mine, so I'll look at mine. I would say I'm doing this by memory, but let me look at their sheet that I have that's coming up here pretty soon. So grades 3, 4, and 5, they all went with Inspire Science. That is from McGraw-Hill. It is an Ohio edition of, for the science standards, because a little different. Ohio has their own science standards. They have pulled from the Next Generation Science Standards, NGSS, which are the national science standards. But most textbooks are written around the national science standards. So therefore, within a textbook, there's a lot of things that Ohio teachers would not need to teach their students because they're not the Ohio standards. So we were looking for books that were aligned to Ohio, and I will tell you there's really only this one out there, and you still do have to supplement. But this was the one that the teachers felt fit the needs of our school the best. So it is called Inspire Science, and along with Inspire Science, the button right below that is Actively Learn, and that gives us just a few more resources that the kids can use that are more aligned to Ohio as well. So with those two in conjunction, we should be able to hit all of the standards that we need to teach. Instead of what we noticed with some of the books was a third grade standard with the national science standards, a third grade Ohio standard maybe in the fourth grade book. So we didn't want to have to be switching back and forth. So that was really the biggest decision for grades 3, 4, and 5, and actually 6, 7, and 8 as well. But then for 6, 7, and 8, they also did Inspire Science, Ohio, same thing, and they also have the Actively Learn. Then for the high school, physical science went with Inspire Science, Physical Science, Inspire Science Biology. That's what the biology teachers decided on. Environmental science, it is a traditional textbook from McGraw-Hill. It's called the Cunningham Principles of Environmental Science. And then Hickman Integrated Principles for Zoology, that's the zoology book. And then Experience Chemistry and Experience Physics, those are the choices for chemistry and physics. And those are Savas products, which is the former Pearson schools. So everything besides the two, chemistry and physics, we all went with, everything's with McGraw-Hill. So that's why the one button is up there for everything else. So you can click on those, you can see what's included. We obviously are not getting everything, but a lot of the, you can kind of leaf through a textbook, see what the pages look like. You can actually get online digitally, see what a lesson would look like, what the kids are going to see. So that, if you get a chance, please explore that. So now let's look at cost. So I have these separated by, there should be a K2. Is there a K2? Yeah. Yep, thank you. So K2, K1 is just the Picture Perfect Science Read Alouds. We need to replenish some of their books because some of them are torn up or missing, possibly. And then our science, our Reading A to Z Science is a 3-year license, so there's the cost of that, and that's a per teacher license. And then grade 2, they also need to update some of their manuals and their read alouds, so we also set aside that much for them to, in order to do that. Grades 3 through 5, and I grouped them 3 through 5 and 6 through 8 because 6 through 8 is a series, so that's why I grouped them that way. Grade 3, they are only going to do digital licenses. And then the leveled reader library, they felt as if they didn't want to have the consumable books because they have, some of their science topics are embedded in their reading series. So they wouldn't be using all of the book. And if they weren't going to use all of the book, we didn't want to send home a book that was half unused. So, because the books are consumables. So that's why they decided to only go with the digital licenses. They can print anything off of there if they need to. And like I said, they also will have some of that embedded in their reading programs. But they do have the leveled reader library, which will give them another option for the kids to build some background knowledge with science. And grade 4, they went with the bundles. I put a little note down below. If it's a bundle, it's a digital and a print license. So they get both. So they went with the bundles, and they're also doing the leveled library. And then grade 5, same thing. They're doing the bundles and the leveled library. And then the actively learned science licenses for grades 3 to 5. That's 675 licenses, and that's the cost for those. And all licenses, we're doing 6 years because it is more cost effective to do 6 years. So grades 6 through 8, kind of the same thing. They're doing all the bundles because they did want to print some print materials, and then actively learn science digital licenses as well. 9 through 12 is where you start to get, we do things a little bit differently. So we did 35 bundles because their textbooks are regular textbooks, and they just want a class set of textbooks. So the 35 will be the textbooks that stay in the classroom that they'll use when they're in class, and then everyone will have a digital license. We also this year added on something we've not done before. We added on 20 Spanish student editions, hard copies, for our Spanish-speaking students. And we did the same thing with Inspire Science, biology, and the same thing with the environmental science, the zoology, the chemistry and physics. We are not ordering any textbooks. He is only doing digital licenses because he felt that's what suited the needs of his kids the best, is just to have the digital licenses. So we're not doing any books there. Another thing about the chemistry and physics is those were also the consumable books, and that's why he didn't think he would use all of it. So we only went with the digital, so he could use the parts that he absolutely needs for his class. So on the next slide, you'll see all the totals. And the estimated total of what this is, 249,559. And this will be back on next month for you guys to approve. If you have any questions between now and then, feel free to reach out. If you have any questions right now, you can ask me now. Tom, they will be ordered as soon as they're approved. So it'll be under this year's budget. We had a lot of snafus last year. It was a really bad year.
So what are we gonna do between now and the next month that's gonna make any changes?
Do what now?
We're not gonna approve this on that.
We don't approve, no, you'll do it.
No.
Yeah.
But why can't we approve it tonight?
Well,
We're not gonna make any
It's
changes.
a law. You have
It's
to,
supposed to be on like out for public to see for 30 days, so if people want to get on and look at this,
Okay,
they
it's a
can.
public deal, not for us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just do want to say, with the national standards versus the Ohio standards, I know my wife's actually going through an adoption in her district as well, and it is very difficult to find good materials for science because everything is written for the national standards.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ohio likes to make it a little difficult on us.
Yeah.
I think the teachers overall are pretty happy with what they came up with. So.
I have a question on, you said this will be a 6-year license.
Mm-hmm.
What was the license before? How often do we revisit this?
So we went with 6
Is it,
before
it's
also.
every 6 years?
Yep.
Okay. And
It
so
is.
on the bundles, do the textbooks last that long?
So no, what happens is on the bundles, like last month I did this, I'll go in and they'll take that total number that we ordered, and so I can move numbers around.
Okay.
So as classes change, like I'll get the estimates from the counselors, and then I'll go in and say, okay, we need, I don't know, I'm just making this up, but we need 25 physical science books. And so then I can readjust everything.
So
So
these-
those will come, the books will come every year if they're consumables, not if they're print copies.
The print
We
copies,
just
okay.
keep the print copies for 6 years, the hardbound
The
copies.
hardbound? Okay.
So these are basically like credits that we, okay.
Yeah.
That was going to be my
We
big
pay
question.
for it all
is-
up, yep, it's all paid for up
Okay,
front.
so this is effectively a 6-year
Yes.
contract
Yes,
for
Paid up
materials
front.
unless we see some significant change or something. If we needed to go from 210 of one of the books to 240, you're saying we can kind of,
I
as
can,
long as the
I'll
total
maneuver
number-
those numbers, but there will be occasions, there could be a point where we do have to maybe order a few more copies to
Right.
adjust things. I mean, and obviously, with the print copies that stay in the classroom, we might have to replace out, throughout the 6 years, we may have to replace.
Once in a
But
while, we get a student like Zach Hagedorn who destroys his textbook and have to replace it. So.
It's because he's studying so much.
But that will
Open
be, that will be from the office, and there is a lost book fee for those, so, yeah. So,
And just for
Yeah.
public clarification, the 249,000, that is the total sum over the 6 years, and just wanted to get clarification
Mm-hmm. Yes,
for the public.
yep, that's
Okay.
for the 6 years.
And then the committee, my only question is, does the committee feel that this will challenge this adoption will take our kids possibly to the next level of challenging on the science level?
We definitely hope that it will.
Yes.
Yes, yes. That's why we liked some of the things that the textbook that they've chosen, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay?
The only question I have is if there is a challenge from the public, this is on hold, right?
yeah, it would have to be.
Okay,
Yep.
no question.
Okay.
Anything
We
else?
do have some hard copy samples if anybody would want to
If
see
anyone wanted
those,
to see
but
'em.
yeah, I just didn't tote them here, but we do have them, so.
Okay.
Thanks, Jody.
Okay,
you
thank
very
you,
much, Jody.
thanks.
All right. Moving on to item 3.3, superintendent's update.
Thanks, Mr. Grant. Let's see. So I wanted to talk about first, we started off with testing actually in the elementary the week prior to spring break. There was I believe some of the upper elementary did some language arts prior to spring break, and it's spread out. Once you start, you have a certain window to get everything completed. So they started then to make sure they got all the tests in. Majority of everybody started this week. So the kids have been working hard. I know at the high school, they have the revised schedule to make sure that the kids that are actually testing, have a nice quiet environment. Both my girls told me today how easy it was, so that's a good sign. Hopefully that's the case for everybody. In all seriousness, I believe that I'm excited for the results. I see what goes on in the classroom every day, all the hard work the kids and the teachers have been doing, and I think we're going to be in good shape this year. So I just want to do a couple little updates with the city of Monroe. First of all, I sent out that message that on Tuesday, May 2nd at 6 o'clock, we, all of us, or anybody, I believe it's a work session for anybody in the city that wants to attend. They are doing a presentation. They hired Market Foresight, and it was a company to do a study on multifamily housing for Monroe. They did an assessment, and the company's going to be there to do a presentation. Bill Brock reached out to me to invite all of you, so I know that a number of you are interested in attending. I'll be there. I believe Holly's going too. So very interesting to see what they have to say. The other piece that I want to talk to about the city is last Monday, they invited me to attend a meeting. They were meeting with a architecture firm that has done some joint projects with a city county, city rec center, city school districts, different joint projects where they've done different facilities, whether it's a recreational center, community center, different types of things. And they showed some examples. It was very good presentation, and kind of what it showed me is the city has a long way to go to kind of decide what they want to do. Do they want a rec center? Do they want more of a community center? Is it like a rec center that concentrates on like a fitness area and a swimming pool? Those are just answers they don't have, and they don't know exactly what or where. The other piece that the architecture firm pointed out was a lot of those joint projects were created to relieve the burden on the school district, which I thought is a good idea. They are set up to actually generate revenue for the school district to pay for part of whatever shared facility they have. So, we are going to continue to work with our building plans. We have our next facilities meeting Wednesday, and we're going to continue. Jesse and I met with the Fanning Howie last week, went over the topics that we're going to cover, and I think we are going to definitely get further into the discussions about what type of building and where, and positives and negatives of both, and things that the different tables shared, and as well as things there. We also have a meeting tomorrow, I believe, isn't it, Jesse, with OFCC, so we're going to twist their arms and harass them and see where we are, if we can get any more information out of them. Another thing that I wanted to share was last week we had there was a kickoff over at Rochester Hills. Alta Fiber has been working with Monroe and the Butler County ESC and Butler Tech, and they are providing free internet service to any Monroe student that is in that community. And we have 72 kids that are in that community. And it is actual fiber. It's not wireless, it's wired, so it's high speed. It is completely free to the families. It does come with a filter for students, so they can access anything they need to for school purposes. If they just want regular fiber, it was a really economical deal. I believe like $30 a month just to get unlimited access to everything. But again, this has been some grant money, and they've been working. I want to thank Tony. He's been instrumental working with Butler Tech to get that set up, and it's been a long time coming. So that was a good event for that community. I was going to share again about the Purple Star designation. That's a great thing that I know that Tom Prohaska's worked very hard along with Kelly Doubleson, and that was officially announced today. And Adam Markham is getting some things together, and he's going to get some information out to the community so everybody knows about that, so. And then the one last thing I wanted to share was we have a student here, senior, I believe, Mr. Prohaska. Am I allowed to say about speaking at graduation?
Yeah.
I guess I already said it, so it's too late. So she is number 2 in the class, and she is speaking at graduation. Her name is Natiera Sims, and she just received a big scholarship from the Middletown NAACP, and it's $5,000 a year, renewable. She is a great kid. If you ever watch my monthly little, I think she's been in half of them because she's just involved in everything. I teased her the last time. I'm like, this should be the Mr. Buster and Natiera show because you're in all of them. But she is just, she's a great student, but just one of those, she's a great kid, and she's involved in a lot of things. So they're having a ceremony for her in a couple weeks. I know Mr. Prohaska and I are going, maybe a couple other staff members, so it's a really neat thing for her, so.
Good.
proud of her.
That's great.
Good, good.
A lot of great kids doing great things, and they're being recognized for it. So.
Good.
And that's all I have.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to section 4, treasurer's business. Item 4.1, approval of the minutes.
I'm asking the board to approve the minutes from March 27th, 2023.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 4.2.
Next, I'm asking the board to approve the treasurer's report for March 31st, 2023.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Oh, we're a little slow on the seconds today.
What's going on?
I kicked him. He's all right.
I did attach a report which you can read, and it shows our current balances and how we compare to the previous year. But I did want to say that there's another report too that Tony, or whoever, Logan, that I want to share. Okay. April, let's see. Oh, it's April, try that one. I think it's that one. Oh, that's not it. Okay, go back, sorry. March 31st, 2023 projection. Okay, so what this shows is that we expect our revenue to be about 1.5 million more than we anticipated back when we prepared the forecast and the appropriations in September. And part of the reason for this is we were getting so much more in interest than we projected. It's like 800,000. We've never gotten that much. Even when we did get a lot of interest, it was more like 400,000. But it's, you know how the interest rates are going up. So that's really, I've never been a treasurer and seen that much interest. So and we also are getting more property taxes. And I don't know if it's just from the building. I mean, we project based on our values, and but maybe things have happened. I don't know why we're getting exactly, more in our property taxes, and I trust that it's all correct. But you just use the way you normally project, and it's exceeding that. So between the interest and between property taxes, we're getting more money. We are not getting as much as we projected from the foundation. It changes every month based on our enrollment. I mean, we're not too far off from the projections, but anyway, we do expect to in the year more. We still have April, May, and June, and I don't expect a whole lot to change, but it could the last quarter. And we're pretty much on target with our expenses. And that could change too, but from looking at all the detail, it looks like we'll be on target. So we will, it's still, we're catching up from being uncapped. I mean, we've never gotten this much revenue, even if it's less than what we thought it would be. But so we probably will add to our balance and be more prepared to hire more people when we have the space to put them in. And so, one other thing is the House bill, and the budget that they're considering for the next 2 years, you know, that they're going to uncap us for the next 2 years. And I've been hearing more and more that it's just going to continue past that. So we might even, you know, when I get the forecast together for fall, may just put it in for the next 4 years. So, but one thing is they're using 2018 teacher salaries, and we would like them to use 2020 teacher salaries. And the difference is for the 2018, it would accumulate from 24 to 27 by $8.4 million that we would receive. But if they use 2020, it would be $13.3 million. So we would, you know, 2020 is still several years ago.
Yeah.
So we hope, I think, you know, there's testimony and asking them to do the 2020. I mean, we'll still keep being uncapped either way, but we would like more money. So.
Do you know, what's their reasoning for using 2018?
Just the governor used 2018. I mean, they've always kind of used salaries from years back.
Okay.
And, I mean, and what I've heard, you know, is that he used 18, so then the Senate and the, you know, reps can say, oh, no, let's do 19, or let's do 20, and they get accolades for using it. I don't know.
Okay.
But I've still, nobody knows really what they're going to do. And it's too early. They're
Okay.
arguing that. Okay, that's my report for now.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Any questions? No? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 4.3.
Okay, next, I'm asking the board to approve the bond fund report.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Okay. I'd like to report that we received no revenue for the bond fund, and we made no payments from the bond fund, and the current balance in the bond fund is $3,139,216.
Is all the money where it's supposed to be?
Yes, it is, yes.
Any other questions?
You got it.
Okay, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 4.4.
Next, I'm asking you all to approve school fees for 2023 to 2024. And they've gone down in the primary school, and they've gone down in the elementary school. And, oh, shoot, I didn't, they have not gone down, wait, I needed to put this description. I didn't put the, I need to clarify this. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay, so junior high, they have gone down a little bit, 149, and it was 151, and 134, and it was 151. So a little bit in the junior high. But the high school has gone up in a lot of different areas, and we did note where they have gone down too. So I really would like to thank the principals and the building, definitely the building secretaries, for working so hard on this, because they look at every expense and every, you know, they do all the research on all this, so, and get the numbers to me, and I just appreciate it. They do, that's a lot of work, so. Okay.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions on the fees? Okay. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 4.5.
I'm asking the board to accept the $20,000 from Premier Health. It's for an agreement we've had for a number of years now, and the last year will be next year that we will receive this money. We have used these funds for the track the last year or two, and so now the current balance is $42,239 in that fund.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Okay. Mrs. Kale, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 4.6.
Next, I'm asking the board to approve a grant of $87,963. It's a supply chain assistance grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the lunchroom will use it.
Okay. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Do we know this grant was coming?
No, I didn't know, not at all. I don't know if Becky knew or not, but we didn't know, no.
Department of Agriculture seems to have so much money, they just keep throwing it at us.
I know. It's my taxes.
Everybody.
It-
No, that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
a lot of money.
Yeah, that is.
for food,
Buy a little bit of, it would buy a little bit of food,
Yeah.
just no eggs.
I was gonna say, there's no eggs in there.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Mrs. Cahill.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to Section 5, Superintendent's Personnel Business.
It's recommended the board approve the following resignations of these employees.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. And item 5.2.
It is recommended the board approve the hiring of the following positions.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions?
Is that new position we approved
Yes.
last month?
Yes.
Great.
All right. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.3.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
Yep.
When does this start, at the beginning of
Next year.
the fiscal year, or the school year?
Yeah, August 1's or,
Yeah, so-
that's technically her start date.
Gotcha.
so.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yep, no problem.
5.3.
It's recommended the board approve the following extracurricular contracts.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. All right, moving on to Section 6, Superintendent's Other Business. 6.1.
It's recommended the board approve the following donations.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions or comments?
Thank you for those donations.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
buddy, thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna have a fireworks show, it looks like.
We gonna be able to sell some of them back to Kings Island or what?
Yeah.
All right. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.2.
It's recommended the board approve the contract with Premier for substitute nurses. Just to note, it is not an increase from this year.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions on 6.2? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.3.
It's recommended the board approve a 3-year contract with Fort Edge for multiple services. And if you see, there is the breakdown right there of what the services are over that 3 years.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions?
Are we currently using this vendor?
Yep.
For these services?
Yep.
Just a renewal?
Yes.
And just for the record, so it is a 6% increase for fiscal year 2023, and then a 3% increase
For the next
there,
two,
the
yep.
next 2 years after that. Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.4.
It's recommended that the board approve the contract with Fort Edge for the on-site technical support, the amount of $75,000.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions?
Is this also a renewal?
Yep.
And what did we pay for this last year? It's not on there. Is it 70?
Okay. Just a cost of, just inflation? No more additional services, just inflation?
Jeez. Hey, Logan.
It's like eggs.
Don't
know
humanize,
why.
yeah, don't humanize the $5,000.
All right. Any other questions? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.5.
It's recommended the board approve the contract with the Butler County ESC for a student to attend Union Day services.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye, motion carried. Then item 6.6.
It's recommended the board approve a 7-year contract with Peterman for transportation.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions?
Yeah, the only question I have is I want to make sure we have accountability on the overtime.
On overtime?
No, I'm
the
sorry, not the
bonus.
overtime, but on the attendance.
So after you raised that question, I did go talk with the supervisor. I think your main concern was if we have a driver who works for us, and then because Peterman is a universal company that supplies a number of districts around us, if they go drive for the other district, are they still going to get our attendance bonus? Well, what I spoke with her, and our regular drivers drive for us because there's never a day where we don't need our drivers. All school districts have substitute drivers that are in a pool, to fill in. And so the only ones that get pulled are the sub drivers occasionally. And they only get pulled if there's a day where they don't have a route to drive here. So they're basically, we would be paying them to sit in our office in case something happened. And so if that's the case in another district close by, she said, we've done it a few times with Madison this year, where they were short and we had an extra sub, so they drove for them. So the benefit of that is we don't have to pay them to sit just in case, and Madison actually invoices us, or we invoice them for the day, so they pay for the driver for that day, so we are not paying them to sit. So, but as far as regular drivers and bonus, they are, they stay with us, so.
Okay, once they're assigned to Monroe, they're Monroe.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, doesn't mean that we don't lose them to the other
Right,
occasionally,
Right.
but, yeah.
Okay.
okay,
Does that answer your question, Tom?
yeah.
Okay. And it's just a dollar increase per hour for staff and then the attendance bonus for the first 2 years, correct?
And then we can continue to look at as salaries over the life of the 7 years if we're falling behind, or we can look at it down the road, years 4, 5, 6, to
We
see
can
if
adjust.
we need to adjust.
Okay.
And the other thing is we are on track for the new bus schedule on a
Yep.
regular basis.
Yeah, and that cost is built into here, and as I shared, it's a good schedule because it's not just a few buses each year. It's based on needs, so we're actually only scheduled to get one new one for this year, but I think the following year, I think 6 buses, so.
Okay.
You know, obviously, buses are very expensive, so.
Yeah,
Again,
Right.
that's spread out over the lifetime of the contract.
So the one thing I was going to point out that we did start this year, we started the new routing system where, and we don't have the results yet.
Not yet, no.
But we'll have those, and the goal of that was to be more efficient and ultimately save money.
Yep.
So once we have those numbers at the end of the school year, then maybe it shakes out where it's, you know, we're giving them more money, but we're still more efficient because of the routing and the work that's going into it. When do you think we'll have that?
Probably not till
August or September?
summer-ish, maybe beginning of the next school year, we'll see.
Okay,
I'll get with transportation, but.
yeah. I'd be interested to know how that,
How
that,
all
yeah.
worked out. Now, if I remember, when I first got on the board quite a few years ago, I remember hearing that the average cost to bring a route online was between like $50,000 to $55,000 a year. Is it about that still, or?
It increases a little because they calculate a per route daily rate.
Yep.
So when you factor that in, it's a little over 50,000.
Okay, so it's kind of remained the same from about 8, 9 years ago.
We're not, there were some districts around us that had $100 more per route and some others, so we were lucky. Our stamp, our size, our tiers, we've been pretty lucky. We just looked at route comparisons to others, we've been pretty lucky.
Yeah.
Okay,
But it's growing.
Yeah.
yeah, yep,
And I hear great things about our transportation from parents. My kids don't use the bus now, but maybe in the future. And I've never heard anything negative. And I've known several of the drivers personally or indirectly. And the video that was presented on the transportation a couple months ago, I think they do a fantastic job. So we'd love to have more people apply and be available for us as we need them.
Yeah, they do a tremendous job, and I've worked in districts where that is not the case.
Yeah.
And our bus drivers and the whole department are great. And I don't know if I shared that video. The Ohio Department of Education actually called because they wanted to use that video to celebrate, and they were calling to confirm that it was actually one of our drivers and not an actor.
Not an actor.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Did we
Because it was so well done.
Did we tell them there's a licensing fee of $50,000
Yeah, we should have.
per view?
Per view.
It's a reason they're still arguing about caps.
Well, we appreciate all of our drivers. They deal with a lot more than they should on occasion, and very happy with the reports that I get back on that. So
I've seen a video today, to echo your sentiment, I've seen a video today from another state, and I don't know if I could, being in that situation, I don't know if I could be a bus driver, because that bus driver was being pushed to the absolute brink of a limit. And so, no, I heard nothing but great things with our drivers, and we are blessed.
And these drivers they get very close with their route and their children, and they know their children, and they celebrate birthdays, and they, make that time with them very important. So it's an extension of our district and our learning environment. So it's really important that we reward those that are doing a great job. So
Great. All right, any other questions, comments? Okay.
But
Mrs.
he's one of the guys, he's one of the parents that clog up the driveway.
never.
Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.7.
It's recommended the board approve a 5-year contract with Sodexo for custodial and maintenance services.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions or comments?
How we doing?
We're doing much better. I think that I'm very pleased with the progress just over the last couple of years. Doesn't mean that we can't continue to do better. But I think I explained in my weekly update my reasoning behind the length of the contract and the direction we're going. They have been doing a good job of getting us staffed, and when they can't get us staffed, they have a temp service that they bring in at their expense, and that is a service that we just can't provide. So that alone is very valuable. So a lot of school districts around us that have them in-house, they just cannot fill the positions. And so, you know, that's when, at the end of the day, the custodians just run the building and empty the trash, and that's all that happens. So we're pretty fortunate there.
Okay.
They doing a good job on preventative maintenance.
Yes.
So-
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
I do have a question. One of the bathrooms I noticed has a damaged paper towel dispenser. Is that something that would fall into their responsibility, or is that?
Yeah.
So the facility maintenance piece is still under, so there's this facility maintenance and custodial. So we have a ticket system that the offices should be reporting and doing that stuff, so if you know where afterwards, we'll talk.
I've been meaning to mention it.
They have been cycling, and I know we were looking at, they were looking at possibly changing their paper towel maker to get us free dispensers.
Right.
Because at one point when Steve Moon was still here, we were buying some when all the damage
Yeah.
in restrooms was happening, we were buying them. So Bev and Jeff were looking at a vendor to try and get us free stuff through their purchasing. So, but we'll make sure to get.
And I'll email you guys, so I'll let you know. I can only speak on the men's room. I don't know if there's any damaged one. But there's one that needs to be removed, if not replaced, for sure.
Most vendors that if you decide to go with their product, they will come in and
Yeah.
replace all of them.
Yeah, and maybe that's something that we can just ask for throughout.
Yep.
Yeah, one of my buddies, he's a Monroe resident. He's a regional manager for Georgia Pacific. So if I need stuff, I just go to his basement. He has all the supplies in his basement. I mean, it's loaded in his
So
basement.
Dave's gonna replace that one. Just leave the back door open this evening. Don't ask any
He's got
questions.
more supplies in his basement than probably Walmart. It's absolutely amazing. So,
Just don't say his name. We don't want to get him in trouble.
Yeah,
Correct.
or his address, or, yeah.
correct. So, good stuff. All right, any questions? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye, motion carried. Item 6.8.
It's recommended the board approve the student athletic code of conduct for the 23-24 school year.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Okay, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye, motion carried. And then item 6.9.
It's recommended the board approve an agreement with Fanning Howie for design and professional services for the summer renovations.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions on 6.9? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye, motion carried. Then item 6.10.
It is recommended the board approve the Neola policy revisions.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions regarding the revisions?
Are you kidding me?
Debbie has a quiz for afterwards.
There is a quiz. I did send out a friendly reminder.
Yes. All right.
I guess there's so much green writing on them papers, man. Why can't they get it right? Next year they'll be back here again.
So all the legislators up in Columbus, they
Yeah,
like
right.
to tweak stuff so that.
When you
we
go to
have-
them nursing homes,
we
that
have to pay
causes
the
that, I'm
attorneys to
telling you.
tweak our policies to
I mean,
fit
they got to
the
have a
law.
purpose, right, Robert?
Yeah, exactly.
There has to be a purpose.
Got to mess it up a little bit, just a little bit,
Every year, just mess, oh,
and come back to fix it,
Yes.
and mess something else up.
You know they had several meetings about each one of those
yes.
to get this.
Of
Oh,
course they do.
absolutely.
There has to be a
Several meetings.
justification.
Right.
All right. Any other comments or
No.
questions? All right. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
and Mr. Grant.
Aye. Motion carried. All right. And thank you, Mr. Buskirk.
You're welcome.
All right, before we move to section 8, we'll start with comments from the board. Mr. Leeds, we'll let you start off.
Well, the one thing, we just got to hang on, man. This is the fastest quarter going there is. So
You're not kidding.
I tell you what, this school year's gone. And again, staff, guys doing a hell of a job. And I've checked with a lot of people in the community just to make sure that we're not missing anything. They said, guys, it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so you're getting a lot of praise from the community, everything. Not only with the kids, but with the building, with the way it looks and things of that. And so we've improved on our presentation of the building to the public. At least they say we have, and I believe it. But thanks again for the job you're doing. And not congratulations, but good luck on the prom. I hope you find the chaperones, Tom, that you're looking for. So, yeah. You have to wake me up. So, but other than that, again, can't say enough about the way things are going. Great job.
Okay, good. Mr. Carpenter?
Well, I just hope everybody had a enjoyable spring break. Likewise, I hope everybody has a great prom, or at least just the Friday off for most of the students. Be safe. Don't do anything stupid, because that's not a good idea ever. And just like, a month left of school? So that's pretty exciting.
Yes.
I'm sure no one's excited about that. But yeah, and just for the students that are taking tests, just do your best. But other than that, keep up the great work.
Okay. Mr. Fulham?
It is time for my high fives from around the hive. High five to our, don't do that to me. Logan, start that over. Give me the music. High five to our Monroe Elementary students who raised nearly $11,000 for the American Heart Association during the Kids Heart Challenge jump rope event. High five to the Monroe staff who defeated the students in this year's annual student staff basketball game. I heard there was some competitive banter going on, and the staff took it to them, so good job, staff.
Very well refereed.
Were you the ref?
High five to all students who were accepted to Butler Tech's Project Life and Project Search this year. Thanks to Lauren Zimmers, Rex Lloyd, the high school teachers, and paraprofessionals that work with our students to prepare them for this great opportunity. And high five to the varsity baseball team who traveled to Orlando and went 3-1 at ESPN's Wide World of Sports complex earlier this month. Very cool to watch them. Though I needed an announcer to watch, high school baseball is fun, but I needed an announcer on there, and was missing a voice. But otherwise, it was nice to watch the boys, and they looked like they had a great trip down to Orlando. And also, best of luck to all of our students who are taking the Ohio State test over the next week or so. And yeah, enjoy prom, and really looking forward to graduation. It's going to be here fast, and excited for that senior class. So get to celebrate them very soon.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
it.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
So I would like to thank the junior and senior journalism students for organizing the first student-led job fair that's being held on May 3rd. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Fry for overseeing all of those activities. That just sounds amazing to me. I wish I could pop in and see what's going on with that. So I think that's a really good opportunity for employers and for the students to find employment and get out there. I'd also like to say congratulations to the baseball for going to the Wide World of Sports as well. I did watch a game, and along with AJ, I would have liked to see the scores and have a little commentary. But it was really fun to watch the boys play baseball down there in Florida. I'm excited for this next month and then graduation, but then not really, because my baby's graduating, and that's it's exciting and sad all at the same time. So
And then you get to join my club, the Empty Nest
I
Club.
get to join the Empty Nester Club.
It's
so.
not as bad as everyone thinks.
So I know this next month is going to go super fast. So just for all the students out there, finish strong. Keep up with your homework assignments and your grades. I know you don't want to, but just keep going because the grades do matter. So finish strong is all I have to say, and enjoy, and have fun at prom this weekend. And like I said earlier, just have fun and make good decisions. That's what it's all about. That's all I have.
Okay. To echo a couple of comments, because that's all I really ever get to do.
Pays to be the president.
Yes. But no, this time has flown.
Yeah.
I was over the weekend, I just happened to jump on a social media and I saw people like asking, post on people asking other people to prom, and I was like, man, it seems pretty early for that. And then I looked, I was like, man, it's the middle of April. I was like, this year has just completely flown by. But yes, I echo everyone's comment about the wide world of sports. I remember when my son was a senior, 2017, they went down there. That was a great experience, to be able to play on the Atlanta Braves spring training field. Those boys will have memories. This year's class will have a lot of memories they'll take forever. Other than that, congratulations to everyone in the administration, our students, teachers, parents.
I have one to add before you end.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And I thought maybe.
Jeez, cut her off, cut her off.
Sorry.
And of course, our parents for a successful school year. As Tom said earlier, really, everything's been positive this year, and I'm glad to, I'm going to be thankful to be able to have a graduation speech without the words COVID in them. So that's going to be great. So
That'll be nice.
Yes.
Yes. So I would like to add, have fun and learn lots to the 8th graders that are going on the Washington DC trip, and to the teachers and the chaperones that are going. I know it's a long trip, it's a lot of fun and a lot of walking, so take comfortable shoes, but just have a good time and be safe.
yes. Okay. All right. Other than that, is there anything else from anybody else? All right. So we will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:12 p.m. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Everyone have a great evening.
Two.